Howdy do. I am introducing Allie Massanople. She's from Hilliard, Ohio, and a fine arts major who has recently been trying her hand at poetry. She would like to write more often, but having the attention span of a kindergartner makes it difficult. She also likes to make it known that she feels she can beat most anyone in a fight and is often compelled to challenge others to wrestling matches on the CCAD quad. I have it on good knowledge these are full contact wrestling matches, not thumb or arm. If you're interested, hit her up. Here she comes.
Fear of the vessel. The eyes. Orbs roll in their tombs. The little portholes I place in them rip in half, lost behind the great jelly boulders. Roll them back in search, but they get stuck as well. I can't see outside anymore. I watch the thoughts in the back of my head now. The hair. Too short, be mistaken for a boy. Too long, be mistaken for a girl. Longer yet, some fool may fall in love with you. The nose. So strange to stick out so far, seems so fragile. It should be less conspicuous, to protect it from blows, accidental and intentional. It could shatter, break off, leaving me with the image of a flesh skull, or be shoved back into my gray matter. It has bled many times, but hasn't broken. Stuff the nostril with cotton. Please try to avoid striking it when we spar. The ears. Twin caves fitted on either side of my head. Cover them with a blanket when I sleep, lest I suffer as my middle school teacher had. Doctor pulling ladybird from her ear, or the boy from the news who became residence for a family of spiders. The mouth. Trapped inside an ivory cage, bars too close to allow any light. The pink animal that lives behind, in the way of my throat, struggles most when I don't want it to. I worry I will bite it off if I trip, writhing still on the sidewalk like an earthworm. Instead, I could choke and swallow him, as my mother told me persons who suffer from seizures do. The flesh. Take care not to eat too much. Clothes may become synonymous with sausage casings. Eat too little, haunches lose their cushioning and never allowing you a comfortable seat. High school English 1, my hindbones were bruising. The heart. The ancient Egyptians said the heart was where emotions happened, but the brain is the source. But I feel it in my heart. Fear most of all causes it to dance. Keep a low resting heart rate. They say there's a ceiling over how many beats a heart can beat. The stomach. I feel sick. Pepto-Bismol is hums in the cabinet. Maybe I'm about to be violently ill, turning inside out, losing my insides, coming out in a mighty magenta and violet rush, all swirling into a great Turkish marbling. The loins. Keep the open wound between my legs clean and covered, free of all foreign objects, protected from disease, infection, procreation. It won't heal. The legs. When I sleep, they believe me unaware. My legs try to walk away from me, jerking me awake. It is very startling, and wastes my heartbeats. Despite attempted abandonment, never have they betrayed me. In my time of need, I have always been able to flee. Okay, this is Innocent Things. He shambles over to me once again, hands dangling as if he has no knowledge of how to exercise their use, but dogs generally don't. Confidently settling himself between my legs, as though they were made for him, specifically designed by God himself. He is kissing me with no regard to the book in my hands. It is smothering, thorough, and sure. Smooches like those of our blue Irish bitch, but she was black and from a puppy mill in Iowa. I am stroking his curls the same way as my favorite temperamental Welshman, who can catch balls from the air, landing them neatly in his jaws with a grin. I should not pet him. He always falls asleep, as he does now. I am pinned under his hot, twitching body. The weight must be pressing my spine to jelly. I have no heart to make such a comfortable animal move. I was made for this, and the damn thing knows it. I am not unappreciated, far from it. Adoration is all I receive in return. I could lay him to waste. He could hurt me, but I could crush him. I whispered him that I'm going to steal everything worthwhile, rob his ass blind. Better yet, instead of waking up against my warm body, he will find himself in an ice bath. All along his body he will see marks, jagged, hastily sewn incisions where the important stuff is supposed to be. Apparently I cannot face a sense of security, but I am scared. More scared than when I was on the road that makes cars move and has that funny name. More scared than before I got punched in the face for the first time. More scared than walking home alone at 2 a.m. from BE. More scared than of the house centipede I threw off my fire escape today. More scared than of alien abduction, ghosts, or Coach DeSavio. More scared than of not bullshitting in therapy. More scared than of people asking me about the marks on my body. More scared than of reading poetry out loud. I'm scared of innocent things. I want broken things, things that understand. I want deflowered things, but I'm not talking about sex. I don't want the spider I didn't squish all the way, writhing or wondering what brought about his sudden agony. I don't want that anthill, product of toil of thousands, kicked down, flood of red, gathering their precious maggoty children. I don't want to see another injured deer dragged out of the road to be shot. I don't want to know about the bluebird fighting his reflection in the window, or how my high school math teacher shoots him. I would have never tilled the garden had I known I would accidentally dig up a nest of shrews. Tiny rising chests, pink hands and feet, they are dead, and being carved by ants in the morning. I don't want the child that left her favorite stuffed animal at the playground. I don't want to see the lost stuffed animal lying in the mulch, dirty, matted, peeling polyester fur, glassy eyes, staring nowhere in particular, wondering where its favorite child of flesh has gone. I have stepped on too many doggy paws. Same thing every time, the same yelp followed by a look that says, "Why? I love you." I want the broken things, the things that know pain, that expect that they don't stop think why anymore, and take it as a side effect of being alive. I don't want to be the one to make the first rip in a new shirt or pull a thread. I want things from the second-hand store, the thrift shop, stained and dented, things already in the process of being ruined. So when I accidentally drop them, you will not be able to tell the new mark from the old ones. I'll never have kids. I don't want to see them get broken. I'll save my hugs and care for all the future broken creatures I meet, and I will hold them. I don't want this fellow that is sound asleep on top of me, who cannot grasp my flaws, my humanity. Maybe I can explain it to him. Once I get to know a dog, they begin to listen a little more and speak a little more. I'll explain that I'm not, in fact, the second coming of Christ. I'll confess that I'm only 8 and still need help by my mother. I'll tell him about how I try to be more than I am and offer more than I can give. I'll say, be sure not to love me, only like and respect me, not love. When I meet him again, I see the ever-present phantom leash attached to his chest, dragging him to me. I'm relieved, I am scared, I may be a broken thing. And that's it. Okay, Adam Bird is from Jinx, Oklahoma. He is an animation major, minoring in both creative writing and cinematic arts, and previously won awards for poetry, screenwriting, and essays through various outlets. When he's not writing or animating, he's busy being a co-president of the Queer Alliance, greeting people over-enthusiastically at CBS and trying to put tiny hats on his pet snake.
Howdy, howdy. So I will be reading from a scene from a screenplay I've written. A screenplay, which I'd like to add, would be rated R for language, if it were an actual movie. So there are some major points of interest to set up the scene before I get down diggity with it. Main character's name is Will. He's a not-so-fine artist with an MFA degree and no success. The other main character is Death, who happens to look like a male Scandinavian underwear model and drives a red 1973 Volkswagen Beetle. Death is on his way to dropping another soul off before he has to divert his route to pick up Will after he attempts suicide. Oh. Attempts being the key word because he bumbles his death and then has to face a very angry Death who's sick and tired of having to make the trek over to collect his soul only to have him keep on living. This is not the first time he's tried this. He usually wipes his memory and lets him go on, but Will tries to strike a deal with Death to finally take his soul and save them both the trouble. And quite troublous it is. Alright. Will groans, looking more and more frustrated. Come on! What do you want? Money? Weed? A fiddle? You gotta help me out. We both know if you leave it up to me, I'll screw it up. Death grimaces, clearly not impressed. While that is very true, I can't just throw you into the afterlife. There's a screening process. I'd have to take you to the bureau. There's forms. It's a decision for headquarters, not... Will pushes past him, going to grab his jacket from the bedroom. Great. Let's go. Death glares, following him into the bedroom. Go where? Will pulls on his jacket and grins. Headquarters. They'll take one look at my record and they'll take me in for sure. Death responds that I can't just let you come with me if you aren't dead. There are rules. Will smirks and lightly punches Death's arm, making him recoil in displeasure. I'm not dead yet, but the way I see it, you can either take me to this headquarters to get my death sorted out, or I can just keep on trying until I get it right. Death is clearly not amused. He does not want to wait around for Will to eventually kill himself successfully. Well, I've got to make a stop there anyway. Will whoops. Death winces, already regretting his decision. But you can't go like this. I can't transport a living person. I'm gonna have to purge you. You have to what? Purge you. Take your soul with me and leave your physical form behind. You won't be all the way dead, just, in limbo. Will it hurt? Absolutely. Do-do-do-do. The next scene shows them finally walking out to the car. Will very obviously shaken and pale, Death looking very pleased with himself. Death tells him to get in the back, and Will cries, "Shotgun!" Death whirls around to snap at him, but Will's faster, diving into the passenger side and propping his feet up on the dash. Feet off the dash. Now. Will groans, pouting as he slides his feet to the floorboard. Death relaxes, sighing as he clicks on the radio, classical music flooding into the cabin as he heads off down the street. Will only lasts a few minutes, however, before reaching out and changing the channel to pop music blasting from the speakers. Death jerks the wheel in surprise. Will hums along before Death snaps his hand out and changes it back. No. My car, my music. Will glares at him, keeping his hands in his lap for only a moment before quickly changing back the radio. Death proceeds to smash his fist against the dial, shutting the whole thing off. They continue the drive, skipping a couple parts, over to headquarters. The Beetle pulls into the parking lot, pop music audible even with the windows up. Will has obviously won this battle. The building is of simple white construction, similar to a satellite company office building. 2 large dishes sit atop of the building, one pointing up, the other pointing down. A sign out front simply says, "Headquarters. Meetings by appointment only." Death and Will stroll into the building, Death giving a nod to the guard at the security desk. St. Peter, a bored-looking man with thick-rimmed glasses and a sweater vest, looks up at Death over a stack of papers from a desk in the corner. Death. Peter. Peter sighs, setting the papers down and looking at Will scrutinizingly over his glasses. Not really your type. But I approve if you want him as your +1 for the Christmas party. All just need is Death glowers, grabbing Will by his sleeve and dragging him forward. Not a chance. I'd eat him off my hands as soon as possible. Peter tilts his head, examining Will. I'd hate to tell you how to do your job and all, Death, but I can't exactly whisk this guy away. 'Cause he's not dead. Will chimes in. But I'm mostly dead. Death sighs in exasperation. He is entirely incapable of doing it himself, and that's why he's here with me. At this point, I probably want him dead more than he does. Peter sighs, spinning his chair around and opening up a large filing cabinet. He digs through the papers, tutting. You don't make my job easy, First, you say you don't process dogs. That's fine. Sure, it took a hefty chunk of change to budget for a doggy death, but I made it work. He finally finds what he's looking for, setting Will's rather large file on the desk before reaching for another cabinet. This one covered in dust, screeching as he opens it. But now you expect me to declare this random assignment dead because you both can't be asked to make sure he does it right. Well, Peter turns, dropping a huge stack of papers onto the desk with a slam. I'm certainly not going to lose sleep over it. If you want me to jump through all these hoops for you, I will. But it'll take a while. Death frowns and Will whistles at the size of the stack. How long is a while? Peter lets out a long-suffering sigh, scrutinizing the papers. 3 days, give or take. Death looks horrified, but Will looks worse, pushing past Death to put his hands on Peter's desk. No, Petey, you don't understand. I kind of want to be dead, ASAP, you feel? Peter is entirely unamused, using a book to push Will's hands off his desk. Peter. And yes, I do feel. However, unless you want to do all this paperwork by yourself, I suggest you let me do my job and go do anything away from me, preferably. Death looks stricken, pinching the bridge of his nose. Thank you, Peter. Death looks over at Will, grimacing at his antics. Please hurry. Peter nods and takes Will by the sleeve again, dragging him out of the building. Will is close to panicking as he follows Death through the parking lot. 3 days? I can't wait 3 days to die! Death is more pissed than concerned over Will's predicament. Well, if he didn't screw up so badly, he wouldn't have had to wait at all. Will stops, turns to look at Death, has an idea, and Death already looks like he doesn't want to hear it. Well, why don't you just take me back? Put me back in my body. I'll go jump in front of a bus or something. I'll make it quick. You won't even have to leave. Death sighs, long-sufferingly. I can't just take you back. You're in limbo until you're processed one way or another. God forbid if you're denied I'd be able to, but until then you're stuck, unfortunately for me. Will whines, looking completely dejected. Well, what the hell am I supposed to do then? I can't just wander around like Casper the fucking ghost. Death shakes his head, wandering towards the car. I'm sure you'll think of something, but whatever it is, it's not my problem. Death opens the door of his car and Will bounds over, opening the passenger door. Death glares at him. Your little detour has already put me behind schedule. Back up from the bug. Will shakes his head. No, come on, you can't just leave me here. Death waves his hand and the passenger door slams shut, narrowly missing Will's fingers as he leaps back while Death gets in and starts the car. Hey, seriously, come on, let me in. I'll march right back in there and bug Petey until he reports you to your boss. God, the devil, Donald Trump, whoever it is. I'll be making a phone call to corporate. Death frowns, contemplating if it's worth it. I'll be super quiet. You won't even know I'm here. I'll just sit and doodle on napkins. I'll keep my feet off the dash and everything. Death sighs, unlocking the doors, and Will grins, hopping right in. Death turns to him, already unamused. Do not make me regret this more than I already do. Will says, no problem, road buddy. Death groans, driving off down the street, Will reaching to turn on the radio. Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. Done. So.
Thank you, Adam and Allie. I have the honor and privilege of introducing our faculty reader, Paige Webb. Paige earned her MFA from Washington University in St. Louis. That's the place where the last debate was. There's another debate tonight in UNLV. I just wanted to point that out. Really, I don't have any observations, just, So she earned her MFA from Washington University in St. Louis, where she co-edited in February an anthology of contemporary poetry, where she created the bilingual reading series Chain Link. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in Diagram, Indiana Review, Poets.org, Portland Review, Vinyl, and elsewhere. A finalist for the New Michigan Press Diagram Chapbook Award in 2016, she is also the recipient of an Academy of American Poets Award and the Howard Nemerov Award in Poetry. She teaches here, of course, at CCAD. She's currently teaching our Writing in the Arts course, but I believe will be teaching screenwriting next semester, so that's exciting. She also teaches at Capitol, the Thurber House, and the Kenyon Review for Young Writers Workshop. I'm new to Paige's work, but from the poems that I've encountered, they often introduce the reader to a situation with a nearly cinematic feel of observation. For example, in her chapter series, which I think she's reading maybe from tonight, a little bit anyway, the reader is often looking at a she, a third person, in a scene of preparation or potentiality. Something's either about to happen or it's just happened. Like Hopper, perhaps, I'm reminded of. Paige narrates a scene with a woman in an interior, alone but surrounded by objects, surrounded by the mundane that through the poet's skill is transformed into art. As she writes in one poem, she opens the mundane like a curtain. Things of the everyday get transformed. I think of Elizabeth Bishop when I read these poems, a poet who would consider a large bad picture. If you know that poem, that's the title, Large Bad Picture. Who would write a poem about a large bad picture? Elizabeth Bishop would. A poet who would consider a large bad picture worthy of transformation. Or who would look at a filling station and ask if the father and his greasy sons live there. Who asks in that same poem, somebody waters the plant or oils it, maybe. So like Bishop in these poems, I see similar degree of observation. And that's what we always say about Bishop, and I guess that's what I'm saying about Paige now. But like Bishop, there's also a quirk. a sense of humor, a line that comes maybe out of nowhere and suddenly kind of shakes things up a little bit. So for some poems that perhaps do some of these things that I've just described, and assuredly other things that I am too dim to notice, please help me welcome Paige Webb.
Chapter in which two characters tussle. In La Femme d'Alger, one smoking woman straightens her red stress, shifts, repose. I swear, the docent whispered, so an eyeball swerve undresses only proximal garb. I leave into a city's leaf-cluttered air, that statue of invasion amid which a street lamp poses goddess-like. Those long angles steady, like the linear fashion of the stunted ginkgos that balanced this morning. My lover, still naked in the dark, shuttered bed, attempted same. What version of sanity have we been rushing toward? I'm looking for a geometry I can scale, asking directions. I swear that goddess is after my stumble. I snap back. I know all about the inevitable. Don't I slip into my Eve costume each midnight and wait for disaster? My lover paces the bedroom. He'd count the women in the painting as one woman in phases, each an impersonation. I arrive at the apartment, brick atop brick without mortar, stairs atop stairs without helix. But really, I don't need a rail. I flash forward when I fall. And this next one is also, and they're all ekphrastic, but this one was taken from an exhibit of interior design from the 1920s to the 1940s at the St. Louis Art Museum. Chapter in which an oculus opens. The simple shapes, cone, cylinder, horizon. Character is a style, yes, an ornamental curve. She hangs each curtain like a dress to contend with hard edges they surround. Any rug pinned to a wall becomes textile art. She knows that, and pulls herself down to the bottom of a cup that reflects her surface. She imagines a separate house where she can gather all her fabric in a wreath around her waist. Who objects? She reclines into a low-slung chair designed for relief. Sleep is repetition of a loud man, whip curled to a horse. Once she was advised to be more transparent, so she steps aside into a space one can walk around with ease. She was told, be a burst of welcome. She is, a grape on forked tines. She watches the ceiling in the bedroom for instructions for where to arrive from under another industrious machine. This evening she plans each detail, arranges the flatware as she recites the speech that will begin, listen, daughter. She won't need to teach her how to say yes when she comes to the ridge of the brilliant red earth, how to become an immediate myth. Okay, and this is the last one of those chapter poems. Chapter in which the aperture closes in on several details revealing the scene, which is obnoxiously long. I know that. Pedestrians point to the out-of-frame lamppost, sky, storefront, all parallel to those in view through the window one woman calls self-portrait, with various faces looking up. Desire strikes her to be that Saul Palmetto, that pinned curl behind an ear. Hooked curtains reveal rote motion, leaves play their role efficiently in. A stance of surrender to indecision's seductive lilt is an optical illusion. She likes to gather kindling she'll never light, walks her 5 dogs separately in succession to compartmentalize small bites, says pleasure, says beautiful, parking meters, so meek. Today, sundry jackets in reliable bustle, one stretched plastic bag hefted over a shoulder, as how her lover swung in this morning. She said, let's drive hard and fast into stability. Mid-gesture, her ring flew off into the teeming grass. She no longer believes in emblematic moments. As one informs the brain's lean on routine, familiar slopes grooved out. The therapist said, try to imagine the unending snow, skirt whisked up in pursuit. Parallel to yesterday, she buys a coffee to rent a chair, far from the blue high chair of childhood, not sepia-toned, complete with the architecture of her mother's back, bent to wipe up her smashed screens. If ardor can cover a scene, cast periphery out to tend each corner where light bends, despite the narrowed field, the diagram slice of the visible, the human slice on time's narrative, then this is how one can step away from oneself, she thinks, to touch. The thought touches the roof of her mouth. Okay, so that's all from that manuscript. So another manuscript I've been working on is more like a project, and it all came out of research on Sappho, who many of you know, or if you don't, she is one of the first, if not the first, lyric poets. And her lyrics, they were song lyrics. They come down to us mainly in fragments. And there are lots of theories about that. And one of the main theories is that when the church came to power, they intentionally destroyed her work because, well, it's pagan, and but also because it had lesbian love in it, as well as like heterosexual love. So this work that I've been doing has many voices, lots of citation, and I could talk forever about Sappho, and if you ever want to, that's fine, let's do it. I'm there, but I don't want to use this space for that. But what I do want you to know is that there are lots of voices here, but the main one is Sappho's. So I actually take Sappho's fragments, and I put them in my text, and they're represented here in red on the page, but you can't see that. So I'm actually going to have a second reader come down, who's my sister, Kim Webb. And she is going to be the voice of Sappho. So whenever Kim reads, imagine she's wearing red, which is what she was supposed to do. She messed up.
I didn't know
That's
that
okay.
was for real. Does anyone have any red lipstick? I'll put it on. On my face. No.
But her voice is Sappho's voice. And it's called On the Black Earth. A fragment. She was born, then exile. Abundant gossip, contradictory, beautiful, fantastic. One version told us prostitute. A stock figure on a stage throws herself from a cliff for a man. A mixture of possible grains, grapes, salt flats, sea rock, olive groves, lovely, short, dark, ugly, misshapen wings enfolding a portrait. I cannot live this absence. Papyrus overlaid with wax, mummy wrappings, a song burning, time scissored want. Textual note. She was born. Nothing aside from what is presented in fragments is known about Sappho. The threads, thin and shifting, translucent enough to slip a self through as one listens to another narrative and wait to echo herself back to herself. The pool reflects what we want as we turn the striking jawline to the right. Fragment 24A, 24C. So a slice of winter cuts the sun. See, you will remember this steel right, my naked aim, as we in our youth knew. Quarry nights in a hem, we did these things to the height of an antique love seat. You are a single, yes, many and beautiful things against the city of ramble, of dried curtains, hanging rafters. I should say again, we live a space whenever within. You there, inside, the opposite side of promise, to see, swoop, repeat, daring eclipse. I'll stop. I won't. Textual note. You, from the Suda. Sappho had 3 companions and friends, Athos, Telesippa, Megara. Through her relations with them, she acquired a reputation of shameful love. What context provokes shame?
I loved you, Athos. Once, long ago, a little child, you seemed to me, and graceless.
Fragment 49. Exile requires new measurements of distance. The lips curve to any question. Each street swerves its incline toward mosquitoed brambles I cannot identify even by mouth. A cloak descends on a yellow field beneath a town shut down. Gates on the doors, the windows beneath years of unmeasured heat. I make a map on my palm, then sweat. Out of some war, I arrive to this. Textual note. War. Sappho was exiled to Sicily circa 604 BC. An exile can be thought of as a war between an individual and those who claim a land. One could easily mispronounce the first syllable of Cleonoctidae as clan. The family ruled the capital of Lesbos circa 604 BC. Fragment 3. You'll be back. The mist sounds as though I haven't tried to give, to call time work, but for the glorious heat of thought, that movement of the beautiful and good, you close in and steep. Say sorry because of the pain to me, that other, as if to lift blame's sunken touch. Oh, please. Consider it merely swollen by the influx of narrative. Textual note. Influx of narrative. Perhaps Sappho is embarrassed by the narrative of her brother's reckless pursuit of a prostitute, as some claim, but she tends to gather others around her.
O Cyprus and Nereids, undamaged, I pray you, grant my brother to arrive here.
Fragment 5. Fragment 105A. I loosen a welcome, move watery hands to your bay as the northern orchard drives fall to full, as the sweet apple reddens on a high branch, as green captures red, turning like brilliant strangers turned lovers, looking high on the highest branch, and apple pickers forgot. No, whispered what they forgot into a hole. No, not forgot, were unable to reach into a bite. I draw those two stranger lovers across a busy street, a continent. You and I, weaving our myths. I ramble, obscure the plot, but you could cut me back to time. Textual note. Weaving our myths. Fragment 188 is simply
Myth weaver.
It's good. One commentator claims Sappho is speaking to Eros, saying love needs a narrative and the lover needs an imagination. From After Apple Picking, Robert Frost. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight I got from looking through a pane of glass. I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough and held against the world of hoary grass. It melted and I let it fall and break. Fragment 51. Wintered air holds pains in a shivered fever. No skin sweats out its fire. All work equals touch to old letters. Beneath shades turn, I don't know what to do. I churn bathwater, then drain before a step into. Two states of mind in me collide, mind pulled and pulled from my mind. Flesh-wrapped vertigo, some untouchable enemy sweeps up sense before onrush. Textual note. Two states of mind. Seeing a hole, the lover desires to fill it, but the sight of the hole renders her uncertain of her identity. Who am I? Which causes an anxious mix of pleasure and pain. The paradox confounds, the mind splits in two, the lover feels pulled to act and not act, as Sophocles says, between binary holes, hunger and repletion, absence and presence, hate and love. Open your hand. Empty? Empty. Here is a hand to fill it and willing, to bring teacups and roll away headaches and do whatever you tell it. Will you marry it? Sylvia Plath, the applicant. Exile requires revision of inside the cleft that defines her skin from mine. I step to the east of me. Men at the canal's mouth flex their performance over the surface of water. Anywhere armies of hulls or feet or hooves can flash their forms. Crowds applaud. Tributaries comb the blackened earth I press my naked face against. Good is in the east of me, lungs expanded to her thumb along the rib bone's curve inside the leaning toward I'm reaching for. Textual note, revision. Page Dubois asks, what would it mean to call Sappho up from the underworld, the subtext, and put her in the text of Plato? She looks into the gap between Plato's and Sappho's definitions of eros, the body, and what is good.
Some an army of horsemen, some an army on foot, and some say a fleet of ships is the loveliest sight on this dark earth, but I say it is whatever you desire.
Fragment 16. Lyrics. Call me the eternal whore, blast from contact, my scandal a fever breaking to seizure, degrading the difference between sex and radical struggle in the bordello of history, my tongue a cracked offering of shells, refashioned to the grand master narrative, flattened under machinery of whole. Call this ritual dismemberment, an animal celebration, haunted body broken, statue of a city wall invaded, echoing scatter, its refugees surrounding a funeral pyre. Call me up, the ruffed oyster housed in sand, a gift like dragon's teeth sown in the black earth. Come see what bursts. I sack and burn, I bones of mother, I stone fabric thrown across states, material, all atoms, I against the backdrop of organs, inelegant, sweat. Refrain. I direct the light on every theater I own, measured pleasures like a gaze over battled lovers stunned by their scene, a divine painting of stress and ambush. A crowd drops decisions in an urns round, black stone for conviction, a foot upon the chest, arm on wrist. That's my lion's head, my ivory forest of secrets. Textual note, ambush. Eros is an external force that doesn't dwell within the lover, but attacks the lover from without, a foreign enemy. In prayer to Aphrodite, Sappho pleads the goddess to support her pursuit using military terms.
All to be achieved, achieve, and be yourself, my ally in arms.
Note, ally has all within it. She likes to undulate between stances, victim then aggressor, then back again.
If she does not love, soon she shall love, even against her will.
Note, will has ill within it. Fragment 130. The afternoon angled fragrant in a jolt of whiskey, near enough. Sheets of sun rustle here, 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 in touches to the floorboards. We could press duct tape to our hands to prove the length adhered, rip and reattach. Does this still work? As Eros, the melter of limbs, now again stirs me a cocktail, I permit the ingredient of one hair swept away, loosened like a faucet, open to what remains of some sweet, bitter, unmanageable creature who steals inside my face in his gesture of hello, unraveling to gush, as in, please know, I want to touch you in every place, all at once. Textual note, sweet bitter. Sophocles describes glucopicron as ice melting in hot hands. It is simultaneity of pain and pleasure. Sigmund Freud. The pleasure principle seems directly to subserve the death instinct. And this one's structured like a play. Enter afternoon, light through curtains. Sappho at her desk composes a letter. Sappho.
To touch you in every place, all at once.
Chorus. Yes, and the axis of a room is swung to any naked pair of beautiful feet. In spilt wonder, sacked armor, we see your victim's stance and raise you to our eyebrows. You say pleasure elemental, the event of it. You say dear and companion and complete in another. Perfect as an equation, one can't learn but drowns within. Honey sick in the mouth of an eye in appetite's pieces. Chorus circles Sappho's desk and body in a dance, in winding circles as their hands depart farther away until exit through windows. Textual note, complete in another perfectly. In the symposium, Plato puts his theory of Eros' origin in Aristophanes' mouth. Suppose two lovers were lying together, and Hephaestus stands over them with his mending tools, asking, "Is it your heart's desire, then, for the two of you to become parts of the same whole? Because if that's your desire, I'd like to weld you together and join you into something that is naturally whole, so that the two of you are made into one." Surely you could see that no one who received such an offer would turn it down. No one would find anything else that he wanted. Fragment 98b. No ivy leaf exists outside the green lip its tributary veins search for. I handle its skin. But for you, Claes, I have no pressure, no envelope, no clasp on any lid still spangled, have no idea where to find, snatch or snap back the now undone headbinder, yet the Mytilenean hairs comb through this morning's waking knot, through the scent of pine in that cove. I meant to hold the lit wick. How light of night spangled one angle of your face, turned now and spooling across tideless surfaces. The length of these things the cleanoptidie flatten. What exile requires it does not return. All the weather vanes point toward memories, ghosts. The sun terribly leaked away the glint of leaves that evening levels. She had to learn Greek words for that, so that was a tough one. We're almost done. Textual note, Claes.
I have a beautiful child, graceful, as golden flowers, my precious Claes, whom I would not trade for all of Lydia, or loveless Lesbos.
Fragment 30. Headbinder. To bind a girl's hair signals she is not wild. The ornament is a way to sustain order, to stave off chaos. Exiled, Sappho cannot find a headband for her daughter in Sicily. And this last poem, what I did, so a lot of these poems are erasures, actually. I take words and appropriate them from other texts on Sappho. But this one is actually, I just culled together all of Sappho's fragments and sort of just like threw them into the stanza that she used, which a lot of these are in, which are Sapphic stanzas. Refrain. I'll take surrender over accomplishment. Inside there, temple of the unexpected, silvery freight of a chest exhausted. With both arms I seize and pour over, for as long as you want. I encounter the field wrapped in a purple cloak, those violets in a lap. I say I am a strong lover, and this is costly. Anointed pine torch in untamed hands, weapon of cloth dripping, excess of a ruined god. I gain no harbor in my Acheron mind, but may it happen to me all. Okay, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for coming out. I would like to thank our readers. I would like to thank Allie for your poetry that delivered the language of the body and some metaphysical, sometimes humorous violence. Sometimes humorous, not always. Adam, for your screenplay of death and will. And I think I put a little emphasis on will, which kind of sounds a little bit like a Renaissance morality play, but with pop music. And Paige, for your ekphrastic project that pays attention not only to art but also design. which is, important around here. And also your polyvocal sapphic update, which was scholarly and lyrical and all of those things pulled together. So I really appreciate that. And I would like to thank all of the readers, and hear it for all the readers, including Kim, for performance. Have a good night.